Picture a world that should be completely frozen. It's so far from the sun that sunlight barely reaches it, and everything around it is locked in ice. And yet somehow, this place is more geologically violent than anything else we've found in our entire solar system. That world is Io, one of Jupiter's moons, and the more we learn about it, the harder it becomes to explain. Jupiter has close to 100 moons total, but 4 of them are in a different league. These are Galilean moons, named after Galileo, who spotted them over 400 years ago using one of the earliest telescopes ever built. 2 of them, Ganymede and Callisto, are frozen and quiet. Europa is wrapped in a smooth layer of ice covering a deep liquid ocean, which is why scientists are so interested in it as a potential home for life. And then there's Io, the closest of the 4 to Jupiter, roughly the size of our moon, but unlike anything else out there. It's the densest moon in the solar system, packed almost entirely with rock and metal. It has so little water that it's actually drier than Mercury, the planet closest to the sun. It shouldn't be doing what it's doing. So here's what's actually going on. Io sits in an incredibly intense gravitational environment. Jupiter is enormous, and at that close distance, its gravity is constantly pulling on Io's surface, not just tugging at it, but physically stretching and deforming the rock itself. At the same time, the other large moons are pulling from the other direction, which pushes Io into an uneven, oval-shaped orbit. So sometimes Io is closer to Jupiter, sometimes it's farther, and it cycles through that back and forth roughly every 2 days. The result is that the moon is essentially being squeezed and released over and over again, like a stress ball that never gets a break. Here on Earth, our moon's gravity pulls on the ocean and creates tides that rise maybe half a meter on average. On Io, Jupiter's gravity pulls the solid rock surface upwards by up to 100 meters. That's not water sloshing around, that's the ground itself being stretched into a slight egg shape every couple of days. All that friction generates enormous heat deep inside the moon, and that heat powers up to 400 active volcanoes scattered across the entire surface. We first confirmed this back in 1979 when Voyager 1 flew past and captured 9 separate eruptions happening at once. What makes Io's volcanoes even stranger is how different they are from anything we see on Earth. Here, volcanoes typically build up mountains over long periods of time, pushed up by colliding tectonic plates. Io doesn't have tectonic plates, so instead, lava just breaks through cracks in the surface, and the ground collapses inwards, forming massive lava lakes rather than peaks. The largest one, called Loki Pantera, is about 200 kilometers wide, a churning pool of molten lava with a cooled island of hardened lava floating in the middle. All the sulfur that gets blasted into the sky eventually falls back down and coats the surface, which is why Io looks the way it does. Patches of yellow sulfur snow, white and blue frozen sulfur dioxide sitting in the coldest shadowed regions, and deep red hotspots where fresh lava is still active. But here's the part that really threw scientists off. Despite all of this collapsing terrain, Io is also covered in tall, sharp, isolated mountains. One of them, called Steeple Mountain, became kind of iconic when better images started coming in. Another rises 18 kilometers high, about twice the height of Everest. And they don't appear in ranges or clusters. They just stand alone, like spikes poking straight up out of nowhere. The best explanation right now is that when the surface collapses to form a lava lake, the pressure forces nearby rocks to push upwards instead, almost like pressing one side of the sponge and watching the other side rise. It's a process that's probably been reshaping this moon for billions of years. Most of what we know about Io's surface came from NASA's Juno spacecraft. It was originally launched in 2016 to study Jupiter's atmosphere, and after completing that mission, it was redirected towards the Galilean moons. In late 2023 and early 2024, Juno made 2 close passes of Io and sent back the most detailed images we've ever seen of the surface. Those images may be what we have to work with for quite a while. Juno is running low on fuel, and the 2 missions currently heading to the Jupiter system, NASA's Europa Clipper and European Space Agency's JUICE mission, are both focused on the icy moons. Io, despite everything that makes it remarkable, doesn't have a dedicated mission coming anytime soon. Part of that is simply because we didn't fully realize what was out there until those Juno images arrived. The science community is paying attention now though, and with new rocket technologies developing and interest in deep space growing, that could change. For a moon that's been sitting there since Galileo first noticed it through a telescope, Io has spent most of history being overlooked, and it turns out it might be one of the most extraordinary places in the solar system. If you want to keep following stories like this one, go ahead and subscribe. There's a lot more out there worth talking about.